In today's video, we carry on and complete our off-season plan series. We're now the top team in the NHL for the regular season, the President's Trophy winning Winnipeg Jets. What should we expect from the Jets this off-season? They had one heck of a regular season, fell short in the playoffs, and they do have some important decisions to make. So we're going to take a look at their internal business, free agency, trades, the draft. What do they do in this offseason to try to duplicate what they did last year but have more success in the playoffs? We'll discuss that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're looking at the Winnipeg Jets and discussing their off-season plan series. So this is the final video in this series. All 32 teams will now have their own dedicated, completed video analyzing their regular season, taking a look at what should we expect from them in the offseason based on their restricted free agents, UFAs, what we think they're going to do in free agency, the draft, the trade market, all those things. And I hope you enjoyed it. There'll be another summer series coming up here after the draft sometime probably in early July. I haven't quite determined exactly what it's going to be yet, but there will be another one where every team will have their dedicated video as well. So there'll be lots of summer content. Nothing slows down here at Top Shelf Hockey. So let's first recap 24-25 for the Winnipeg Jets. Take a look at their individual and team results, analyze their cap space, all the internal contracts, and all the expectations facing this team. So internally, they had a record of 56, 22-4, 116 points, phenomenal season overall. Not a huge improvement from last year, to be honest. They only went up 6 points, but every little bit helps. Last year they won 52 games. This year they won 56. 6-point improvement. They scored 275 goals, which was fourth best in the league. They gave up 190, which was number one. They get the Jennings Trophy as a team, which is, in theory, can go to a goalie tandem, but Hellebuck had played so many games that technically Eric Comrie didn't qualify to be theoretically on the award, but obviously they look at it that way. It's a goalie tandem award for the best goals against average. Power play was number one in the league as well, 28.9%. The penalty kill was a little bit above average at 79.4. So all in all, they made a few small improvements. They were a little bit more offensive this year. Their goal scores went up by 16 from 259 to 275. Goals against went down as well. They went from 199 to 190. So some small improvements allowed them to win a few extra games and become the top team in the Western Conference and in the NHL, having home ice advantage throughout. Unfortunately, they had a tough round 2 loss against a very good Dallas Stars team, but a team that I still think they could beat. Obviously, they had the Game 7 emotions. Mark Scheifele losing his dad right before Game 7, playing with a very heavy heart, scored a very emotional goal. It affected not just Mark, but obviously Mark the most. Scheifele's dad was the guy that was around the team a lot, and especially a lot of the longtime teammates knew quite well. He said he was around enough that it affected other people too. And not only are they trying to come together and win for the Scheifele family, but you have a really good opponent on the other side. It came down to overtime with Thomas Harley scoring the winner. Ultimately, it just wasn't meant to be. Connor Hellebuck, as we'll talk about here in a moment, a phenomenal season overall, but still had his playoff struggles. We also learned as well after the series that Adam Lowry had been dealing with a hip problem, and it's not something that was brand new. It's actually something he's been dealing with for a few years. He's getting cleaned up now and will miss the beginning of the regular season in 25-26. Looking at the goaltending, Connor Hellebuck, like I said, had a phenomenal year, 47, 12, and 3, a 2.0 goals against and a 925 save percentage. He wins the Vezina Trophy for top goaltender. So technically, him and Comrie together win the Jennings Trophy for best goals against, and he takes home the hardware for the Hart Trophy as league MVP. So you can't get a whole lot better than that. Unfortunately, like I said, the playoff, Hellebuck still had his demons showing up and had some inconsistencies. I'm not sure what it is, but for them to have further success, he's going to have to conquer that for sure. Eric Comrie had a pretty good season as well, a record of 9-10-1, 2.39 goals against and a 914 save percentage. So didn't play a ton, but just over 20 games in and had a good save percentage. So really, he's done what they hoped and asked of him as his role backup goaltender. The top individual leaders was Kyle Connor, 41 goals, 97 points. Mark Scheifele, 87 points. Nick Ehlers, 63 points. Josh Morrissey, 62. Velarde wasn't far behind him as well. Later into the year, of course, they added Luke Schenn and Brandon Tanev. Of course, Brandon Tanev, quite a familiar face after playing a number of years with the Jets previously, and Luke Schenn as well. So those guys both played really well for them and were pretty good pickups. Cap space wise, going into this offseason, they have $24.46 million. They have 17 contracts already on the books for next year. Some of those are flexible, so they can make a little bit more room or sign more experienced veterans to take over those spots, but they do have a lot of questions. So we're going to take a look at their expiring contracts first. On the RFA side, they got Gabe Velarde. Obviously, he needs a new deal. It's been a phenomenal fit with them, but he is restricted, so they don't have to worry too much. Obviously, they don't want to see any offer sheets, but they're in a good position there. Velarde should be signed. They got Morgan Barron as well. Dylan Sandberg and Rasmus Kupari. Kupari is signing over in the Swiss League, so he is not going to be back. The Jets can put forth a qualifying offer, though, to retain his rights should he decide to want to make a return to the NHL down the road. On the UFA side, of course, they got Nick Ehlers, by far the biggest name on that list. Mason Appleton, Brandon Tanev, because both those guys have a lot of history with this team and have played the Jets on multiple occasions. Dominic Toninato, Hayden Fleury, Chris Driedger, Dylan Cousins, Axel Jonsson-Falby. Those guys all kind of played sparingly throughout the year. Driedger is heading to the KHL. We already know that, so we know he's not re-signing, not only with the Jets, but anywhere in the NHL. I suspect some guys like Toninato maybe comes back. Coughlin, Falby, both spent most of the time in the minors, so I don't see them returning unless they sign a two-way deal and expect to play a lot in the AHL. But Ehlers, Appleton, Tanev will be the main ones to watch. Obviously, I think there's some level of interest to bring them all back. It doesn't matter if they can agree to terms or not. I don't know that. Besides Ehlers, I think Appleton and Tanev are, I guess, a little bit more replaceable in a sense, but again, especially Tanev plays a little bit of a unique game, so it will be interesting to see what happens there. As far as players eligible for contract extensions, this could be interesting this year as well. Kyle Connor, of course, arguably their top goal scorer, top player, you can make an argument for most productive at least, is going to be entering the final year of his deal, so obviously getting him locked up for a new extension would be important to the franchise. Captain Adam Lowry is set to go into his final year as well. Cole Perfetti, he's ready for his next contract. So that's, again, Perfetti will be restricted, so not a ton of pressure there to get that done. On the back end, they do have some guys that could be extended. I don't know if there's as big of a deal. They could wait on some of these, but Logan Stanley, Colin Miller, and Luke Schenn all eligible, and same with backup goalie Eric Comrie. So we could see some contract extensions. I would suggest obviously Lowry and Connor would be the most important out of the bunch and a little bit more timely, just to hopefully have things like that done ahead of the regular season. But obviously a big question for this team, because we've already seen a new addition to this franchise moving forward, and that's longtime Blackhawks captain and Manitoba native Jonathan Toews. The question for me is, how is he going to fit with this team? How productive is he going to be? Where exactly is he going to fit on the lineup? I suspect, based on how they paid him, obviously they signed him to a contract that's largely bonuses, $2 million salary with another $5 million in bonuses that can be earned. So the fact that he can earn up to $7 million to me says that they are hoping he can be a second-line player. We know, like I said, Adam Lowry will miss the beginning of the season, so his presence in the middle of the ice, in the middle of that lineup, is obviously going to be missed until he can return. Hopefully Toews can kind of help pick up the pieces there and kind of take the pressure off a little bit. Hopefully he can play something close to what he was when he was last, being a good productive player in the NHL. He's gone through a lot of health problems the last few years, and we'll see where things go. But obviously his presence there, if it can be productive, can be very, very good. So we'll see. But that's a big question for me, is where does he fit? And we won't really know the answer to that until things get started. Can they retain Nick Ehlers? Nick Ehlers is by far their most interesting unrestricted free agent. Replacing his production will be challenging. I think when it comes to Ehlers, a couple things that are important to him is I think he wants to be a first-line player. I think he wants to be a first power play guy, and he's not always consistently getting those opportunities. I mean, especially as long as Gabe Vilardi's been there, they've had Connor and Scheifele typically always play together, and Vilardi's been the other winger on that line. They occasionally switch it up, or when Vilardi's been hurt, Ehlers just had a little bit more opportunity, but he's not consistently getting those top opportunities, and I think that's something he wants. The belief is if he does leave Winnipeg, he'd like to go somewhere that's described as maybe a little quiet, so maybe less media exposure. So we'll see, but obviously if they can't sign him, and then there leaves some big question marks for that second line. Because I know they're hoping that he'll be like, oh, okay, well, the team's trying to get better here, can play with Jonathan Toews. That's not really what he wants. I think he wants to play with Scheifele. And, obviously that's not something they can promise or guarantee. So it's going to be interesting to see. Because if Toews struggles and Ehlers is gone, that second line is going to be drastically weakened. So that's going to be a big concern, and we don't know what else they're going to do. Obviously, like I mentioned before, Connor Hellebuyck, the big question is, can he overcome his playoff demons? I know he's worked a lot with different psychologists and all kinds of things to try to work on the mental aspect of the game, because clearly it's not a skill. It's a mental aspect, why these goals are going in on him that wouldn't go in on a regular season. So, again, we're not going to know the answers to that, but that is a big question, because I believe until they can see him overcome those playoff demons on a consistent basis, I don't know that this team can truly be considered a cup contender. At least not one of the top ones. I mean, even though they were number one in the NHL's regular season, there weren't a lot of people picking them to go to the Stanley Cup final. At most to the Western Conference final, and some had them going out in round 1 or 2. And largely because of Hellebuyck's being such a wild card. I mean, the decor is mostly set. Because based on contracts, I wouldn't expect a whole lot of attention and things to be there, change or anything. Hellebuyck and Comrie are still under contract. Will be the goalie tandem. So obviously the main area we're going to see change is within the forward group. Like I said, you've got 3 or 4 regulars there that can be UFAs. They got to get Vilardi done and Barron as well, I don't expect any issues getting those contracts signed. So they will be back. It's just a matter of how things go. But if, as far as are they going to be busy in free agency? Well, a lot of that depends on what they bring back that's already with the team. If they can't retain some of their guys, then I expect them to be busy trying to bring in somebody else. We've seen some reports that if Ehlers does leave, that they could be one of the teams that try to get in on Brock Besser. But we know with Besser, there's lots of interest, and I don't know what their odds would be to be able to land him. And after Besser and Ehlers, there's not a lot of higher-end scoring wingers in free agency. To find guys that could play instead of Appleton or Tanev, if they don't sign those guys, that, will be a little bit more, they'll have more options there. So I'm not real sure that that will be too tough. But as far as them being busy in free agency, is really going to boil down to how things go with their own guys first. As far as the draft, they are picking at number 28 right now. They don't have a second or fourth round pick. Is it possible that they make some moves to get more picks? Maybe. They do have a few decent prospects. It's not like they have the deepest prospect pool because they've been in win now mode for a while. That pick at 28, I mean, maybe they use it. Maybe they move back and get more assets. Maybe they move it for an immediate help kind of player. A lot of that, again, by the time they get to the draft, which is obviously not far away now, they'll know hopefully where things stand with Ehlers, and it might be a good indication that if we see them make a trade, for example, for a top 6 winger, that might be a good clue that Ehlers isn't coming back. So we'll see what happens, but right now they are picking 28th at the draft. They don't have a ton of picks, but they do have their first rounder. So clearly that could be an indication of where things go. Like I said, I only expect them to be busy in free agency if their own guys don't come back. As far as trades go, it's not really quite clear. To me, I can see them trying to swing a trade for a top 6 winger. If Ehlers leaves and they have trouble in free agency, they'll have to turn to the trade market. But I don't foresee much in the trade world for the Jets. I think they'll largely come back if they can with a lot of the same group. But there's big question marks. Some of these guys have the option to go, and if they do, they'll have to address it between trade and free agency. But it's mainly going to be the forward group that sees a little bit of change. And obviously, we've already seen Jonathan Toews enter the chat here and see how he can perform for them next year. So let me know your thoughts and your expectations for the Winnipeg Jets this offseason. Can they repeat as the top team in the NHL, top team in the Western Conference? Can they overcome the Hellebuck Demons and go deeper into playoffs? And what changes do you think will be necessary to make that happen? Let me know in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.